Hey friends, I'm Amit Shah, and I'm here to tell you a horror story on Cooney Monday. So, let's dive into the story I discovered while hosting MTV's new show, MTV Dark Scroll. On this show, my team of 9 seekers and I investigate some of India's most haunted locations to find out if ghosts really exist and if they do, to interact with them. On this particular show, we ventured to one of Uttarakhand's most haunted houses, Radha Bhavan, where I learned about Birju's story. Birju was a 21-year-old from Delhi who was an ordinary guy with a great love for the mountains. He was always thrilled by them and made it a point to visit the hills at least once a month. This time, he came to Mussoorie with his mountain buddy Samir. While exploring the area around the Radha Bhavan fort, Birju's eyes fell on the ancient fort, and he insisted on going inside. However, Samir grabbed his hand. Being a local, Samir knew something about Radha Bhavan that Birju didn't. He had heard from his family that Radha Bhavan wasn't just any fort. It was said to be haunted. Birju didn't believe in ghosts or paranormal phenomena. He thought these were just stories and was determined to prove them wrong by entering the fort. When some locals passing by saw the argument between the two, they came over. When they learned that Birju was adamant about entering Radha Bhavan, their faces went pale. They told him the story behind the fort. Built in 1870, Radha Bhavan had its own legend. It is said that a king from Kolkata, who fell in love with the beauty of the Mussoorie valleys, built the fort as a symbol of his love and named it Radha Bhavan. He became so attached to the fort that he never returned to Kolkata and lived there until his death. Years later, an Afghan sultan named Amir Yaqub Khan also arrived at the fort and became enamored with it. However, the British had their eyes on the fort as well. Despite their attempts, the Sultan refused to leave. The Britishers imprisoned him in a dungeon within the fort, where he died. It is believed that the Sultan's spirit never left the fort. After his death, there were numerous paranormal incidents involving the Britishers who had to flee in fear. It is said that Sultan's spirit still resides in the fort and does not tolerate anyone else's presence. Many people who entered the fort either went mad or never returned. Even today, one can hear the Sultan's anguished cries at night. Hearing this story, Samir was terrified, but Birju laughed it off, mocking the locals' tale and insisting on entering the fort. The locals, angered by his disbelief, left, and Birju went inside the fort. Samir refused to follow him. As soon as Birju entered the fort, his eyes lit up with fascination. He began to feel a chill, but he brushed it off as normal for a hill station. As the sun began to set, darkness enveloped Radha Bhavan, but Birju didn't want to leave. Birju stood inside the fort, calling out to the Sultan's spirit and laughing at it. Suddenly, he heard footsteps. At first, he thought it was his imagination, but then he felt as if someone was breathing beside him. A cold shiver ran down his spine, and when he looked down, he saw someone grabbing his feet and dragging him across the ground. Panicked, Birju saw a figure in Sultan's attire, pulling him along. Terrified, he screamed loudly. The Sultan turned to face him, and the image of the Sultan's face, with its peeled skin and darkened body, became etched in Birju's mind forever. Birju realized that the Sultan's spirit was real, and the local story was true. The spirit dragged him into a dungeon where all he could see was darkness and hear ominous banging sounds. Overcome with fear, Birju's breathing became labored, and he screamed in agony until he lost consciousness. When he woke up, he found himself lying in the back seat of his car with Samir sitting next to him. Samir had left Birju behind initially, but grew concerned and went back to search for him. After some time, he found Birju unconscious outside the fort and brought him to safety. Birju hugged Samir and recounted everything that had happened. After this incident, Birju never returned to Mussoorie, and his mental health deteriorated. He became mentally unstable, and Samir still dreams of Radha Bhavan's horrors. Listening to this story left my entire crew and me astonished. Birju mocked the entities residing in the fort, and he faced the consequences. In the next episode of MTV Dark Scroll, our seekers also went to investigate Radha Bhavan. If you want to see how their experience turned out, catch MTV Dark Scroll every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 7 p.m. only on Geo Cinema. The link to the show is in the pinned comment. And if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, English Horror Story.